Hey everybody, Derek here. I'm here to bring another video for Z Nation. And this video is going to be doing my thoughts on the pros and cons that Mack's death may have for Season 2. I think that a lot of us were very, very surprised by what happened. I know I'm one of them. And, I am going to miss Michael Welch and Mack. I think that it was, very, very surprising to see him taken away from us at just the blink of an eye. And I would like to give my thoughts on that. I wanted to wait a couple days so that way many people had a chance to at least see the episode. So that's why I waited a little bit. But I feel like I've given people enough time to see the episode or read about it. So that's why I decided to post the video now. So, giving my overall thoughts on it, in a sense, I could kind of see Mack's death coming. Did I see it coming then? Oh no, absolutely not. I did not see anybody dying. Just from the promos, just because I didn't hear anything about any of it. I didn't expect that that was going to happen. But I think that it did in a sense, when it comes to all of the other characters, I think that Mack was one of those characters that you could have killed off. Because he really was in a relationship with Addie, and it seems like for Z Nation, when you fall in love, or if you're in a relationship, that marks you for, potential death on the show. Kind of like with Walking Dead, if you start to be the moral compass, you're going to die. On Z Nation, with the exception of Hammond, with both of the deaths, Garnett and Mack, it was because they were in relationships, and I think that that is one of the factors that drives it. It definitely is going to cause some very terrible feelings in Addie. I think she's going to struggle with this throughout the season, and we're going to be able to see that. We're going to be able to see exactly how she's feeling about it. What is it going to do to her? And I think that that's something that's really going to affect her throughout the rest of the season. So, just to give a couple of, pros, in the sense that as much as I don't like to see characters go on a TV show, you realize that it is necessary. It is something that has to happen on Z Nation because, let's face it, even on Walking Dead, Z Nation, if nobody ever died, I think interest in the show, would wane. I think that a lot of us would start to become very, bored with it. Like, oh, well, sheesh, if everybody's going to survive, what's the point of, watching this, because they're always going to figure out a way to get out of things. So I do understand that that is something that has to happen. And one of the pros for Z Nation is just that it once again shows just what Z Nation is willing to do to demonstrate the shock value of the show, and that you never know what's going to happen. You really don't. And I think that that was the biggest thing that Mack's death did, because, Hammond and Garnett got killed off in surprising ways as well. We didn't really see it coming. We did not think that that was going to happen to either of them. But then, of course, you get to an episode like this. This is the second episode of a season. Who would think that a main character would be killed off in episode 2, unless it was like a 2-part, episode, which it kind of was, but we didn't know it was going to be. So just the simple fact that it happened when it happened, I think that it definitely provides that shock factor. And we feel, I think, as audience members, that nobody is truly ever safe on Z Nation. And I think that that is important to feel, because it's something that we may not feel like with Walking Dead, where we know that Rick will never die, Carl will never die, Daryl most likely won't, or you can pick some characters that most likely won't. With Z Nation, you can't really do that. You think you know what's going to happen, and then they totally come out from left field and just surprise you. I think there's some characters that, based on the story, they may not die in season 2, but when it comes to the near future, season 3, season 4 even, I don't know. And they can really do whatever they want to do, and I'm just interested to see where they are going to go with it. But I think Mack's death definitely keeps the audience, on their toes. Don't get too comfortable. We thought that he died before, in Sisters of Mercy, and it constantly puts you on that, ooh, is somebody going to die or is somebody going to live? Will these characters really make it through the episode? We don't know. And I think it reinforced that. Another thing that I think that it does is it does give more room for Addie to grow. And I think that a lot of us, see that Addie is a character that is very complex. Somebody who, has a lot of feelings, has a lot of emotions that impact her in various different ways. And that is something that's good for a show, when you do have complex, interesting characters and what you can explore in them. I think that that does make it more interesting. And Addie seemed to be the character that was fleshed out a little more than Mack. I mean, I felt like Mack was more, one-dimensional. There really wasn't too many different things they did with him, which is not a bad thing. I mean, you also need those characters who will stay roughly the same. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just that when it comes to the way that the story is going, that's the decision that they made. But I think that, Addie definitely has some interesting stories coming her way. We may see her finally dealing with some of the things that she has dealt with in the past, or they may come to haunt her, that she may become even worse with, flashing back to things. And I mean, how emotionally distant she got in Sisters of Mercy and just really, shocked everybody, by just staying at the Sisters of Mercy compound. You really have to wonder what her character will do. I mean, when she became like that, she killed that guy, that kid, whenever the Sisters of Mercy captured those bikers. She just flat out executed him. And I think that we're going to see a little bit of a crueler Addie in this upcoming season. Somebody who is more emotionally distant, who is, somebody that will, you don't want to mess with. And when it comes to Murphy and Addie, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of different problems going on there where we may really see Addie tested as to whether she can really put her differences aside and do something for the greater good, or if she's going to, snap. And I hope that she can, act for the greater good, but we're not going to know until we see her state of mind in the next episode. So lots of questions, but I think that it does open a lot of possibilities for her character. And I do think that was something that they had in mind eventually. And we see a lot of that, like on Walking Dead, Sasha, losing Bob and Tyrese made her the character that she is. And sometimes that happens, when you lose the loved ones in your life, on a show like that, it changes your whole character. And I think that was something that eventually the writers were going to get to. Another thing that it really did was it got the mission back on. I think that Murphy, I think that at this point, at least for a little while, I mean, we'll see what he's thinking too, but it at least helped get this group back together and made Murphy realize, it's my fault. Now, I don't know if he's going to feel too bad about it, though, because from the preview, I mean, he's, sitting on that thing going, hey, stewardess, is there going to be snacks on this flight? And whether he's, just saying that because that's who he is, I mean, which is, of course, who he is, but, what exactly is he going to be feeling? I'm not sure, because we've seen Murphy just, shrug things off. I mean, when he said being in the zombie apocalypse means never having to say you're sorry, I think that really defined him. And while the mission's back on for now, you really do have to wonder if there will be struggles later on with it. As we see various characters being conflicted about Murphy now that he's caused somebody else to die, somebody that they've traveled with ever since the beginning, that you can tie that death to him. You can't really tie Garnett's death to Murphy. That wasn't his fault. But Mack, yeah, I do blame Murphy for that one. I think that's on him. Again, if he wouldn't have set the zombies loose on everybody and ran away from his problems, and just would have went with the group, maybe things wouldn't have gone down that way. So that is on him. And I will be interested to see how the group is going to interact, but I think that will provide some story and some interaction down the road. And we're really going to have to see if Murphy can or will redeem himself a little bit. I mean, he's definitely on that edge, where sometimes we go, hey, Murphy did a pretty darn good thing, but other times we're like, screw you, Murphy, and right now we're really feeling that way. So those are some of the pros. And then I have one that's kind of a pro slash con because I don't know how I feel about it. The way it was done. Part of me likes it because it is realistic in many ways to the way that real life is. One of the things that I thought about was, Mack really wasn't involved as much in these 2 episodes. We really didn't get a lot of dialogue from him. We really didn't get a lot of that, interaction between him and Addie. There really wasn't a lot. It was more focused on, getting the group back together and then, of course, them fighting off the bounty hunters. So we really didn't get to hear a lot from him, and we also didn't really get to resolve much of the issues between the two of them. But that is more like real life. I think about that, where we usually don't get those miraculous last moments or epiphanies in life before either we die or somebody close to us does. Like with Garnett and Warren, I mean, at least they got to share their feelings with each other and have an intimate moment before Garnett died. So that's more of a story, thing. But on the other hand, with Mack and Addie, that could be more realistic, where you do, you don't get to say the things that you want to say to people or do the things that you want to do. And before you know it, it's too late. The person's gone. And I think that that is realistic. And in one sense, I liked how they dealt with it. But then on the other hand, you think to yourself, I mean, is that really what we want in a story? Do we really want to see these stories cut short like this? Or do we at least want to have something, just even a little bit of something to go off of? Which really there wasn't. Even in that first episode, I can't really find like that meaningful thing that Max said to Addie that would at least give a little bit of something, for her to hold on to or something. And even in the, even right at the end when he was getting killed, I mean, that was just, part of that was out of love, but also part of that was, he didn't want to have to, have Addie see that. And I think that, on the one hand, I am disappointed because, I mean, do we really want to have like just that little, next to nothing of questions answered? I was very disappointed in that a little bit, that they didn't do it later on down the road, which I think would have made even a little more sense. I mean, I guess we'll see where the story direction is going, but if I was going to do it personally, I wouldn't have done it till later in the season. Maybe not have Mack and Addie completely heal their relationship, but at least put something out there that would, at least give Addie maybe a little bit of hope, but also still have her conflicted. Like I think with The Walking Dead, and I know I bring up The Walking Dead a lot with this video, but it does help to understand the parallels here. But at least with The Walking Dead, I actually liked the way that they dealt with the Rick Lori thing in season 3. There was just enough, just enough interaction, just enough signs that, reinforce this idea of we know how the two feel about each other. We know the things that they've gone through. And while they didn't get to vocalize that and actually, mend their relationship, we at least can understand as an audience what was going on there. With Mack and Addie, we don't have a freaking clue, in my opinion. I really don't know what either one was thinking. Were they going to patch up things? Did they patch up things? Did one want to do so more than the other? We don't know, and we may never know. And I think that is disappointing in many respects, that we're left with more questions than we are with answers. And sometimes I don't like that, and as viewers, you don't like that. I would have at least liked a little bit of a, understanding, and I personally just don't think that that end scene there was enough to really have us understand the states of mind of the two. So personally, I would have killed him off later on in the season, and at least had a little bit more interaction, but, we'll see what happens. And then, of course, one of the other things that I do worry about is, with Z Nation, it seems like they do end stories at a quicker pace. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's not. I mean, you see a lot of those episodes in season 1 that really stand on their own, where you could think of them as a movie, in a sense. And, sometimes you do wonder, how cool would it have been to involve excuse me, how cool would it have been to involve the cannibals for a couple more episodes? How neat would it have been if Homer would have, tagged along with the group for a little bit and interacted with 10,000? You think about a lot of those things, and, really, sometimes you do get a little disappointed that they didn't, flesh that out. I mean, I think it makes sense in the long run, but for this, they're really going to have to show us that it was necessary to end this story. Because I think the Mack and Addie relationship is not something to just fling off to the side and forget about. And, I think that with what they did, I don't think it's going to be over. I think that we're going to feel the effects with Addie. And I'm hoping that maybe we might see a little more of Mack. That maybe, how Addie had those dreams in season 1. We had that. Well, maybe we're going to have some of that in season 2. Maybe this is not the last time we'll see Michael Welch, even though his character is passed. We may see more interactions and dreams, things like that. And I would like to see that because I want to get a little more answers. But, sometimes when you do cut these storylines short, it is a little disappointing, that we wanted a little bit more. And, are they going to have interesting stories later on down the road? Well, I hope so. I think that the Mack and Addie story would have provided a lot of drama. It would have provided a lot of interesting aspects for us to watch. And, think about that from, like, Walking Dead perspective. What if they would have killed Glenn or Maggie off, in, like, season 3 and just didn't have the stories that you have now with them? That would be a little disappointing. And I think that, we're kind of feeling that way about the way that they dealt with Matt. But on the other hand, and just to begin to close, I think that Z Nation has shown in the past that they do know what they're doing. I will give them credit. They have turned what I thought was, something that was impossible to come back from, killing off Hammond, killing off Garnett, and they made a pretty good season. And I think that season 1 is overall great. And you know what? I'm going to give them a chance. I don't think that, people should stop watching just because of what happened. I say, let's see what Z Nation has to offer. They've shown before that they've come back from things and have shown why these things were necessary in the story. And I think that they do have an idea of what they're going to do with Addie now, and I'm interested to see it. So I will give them a little bit of credit and say, well, I think I know what you're doing, and I'm interested to see what's next. But again, rest in peace, Mack. You were a great character. I enjoyed the performance that Michael Welch gave. I think it was very, very good. And Mack will be missed. I mean, losing a character that's been on the show for ever since the beginning is a hard thing to deal with. So it is going to be different without him. But with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you guys have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, please do not be afraid to suggest. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.